Are you getting pressure from finance to justify or reduce your cloud bill? CloudZero is the only cloud cost platform loved by engineers and trusted by finance. CloudZero can identify unused, idle, or over-provisioned resources, alert you to spend anomalies, and organize 100% of your spend into a framework that mirrors your business structure, like cost per customer, product feature, or team. It's the most powerful platform ever built to provide accurate, granular visibility into your total cloud spend without the typical pitfalls of legacy cloud cost management tools like endless tagging or clunky Kubernetes support. Manage cost, optimize development, and maximize profit, all in one platform. Join companies like Rapid7, Drift, and SeatGeek by visiting cloudzero.com/cloudcast to get started. That's cloudzero.com/cloudcast. Visit today to experience immediate and ongoing savings on your cloud bill.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We're coming to you live from our massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And it is Aaron for Cloud News this week. And for Cloud News, it is cloud earnings season, which means Microsoft, Google, and AWS. They're all put out numbers. We're going to talk about them. And then also coming up after the break, we're going to be talking with Leonard Pahlke and really going behind the scenes of a major Kubernetes release. So you definitely want to stick around for that. Now, first news item, Microsoft. Let's start with them. Really good earnings, 18.3 billion. So if you kind of forecast that out, a run rate of, let's call it high 70s, and that number is going to be important when I get to AWS, up from about 9% from earlier this year. And of course, as we've seen here in the news recently, they're really doubling down on OpenAI and ChatGPT and further integrating that into the products and the product portfolio. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out for them long term. And if I talk about Google coming up next, Google's big thing is, hey, they turned a profit. They've been really losing money for the last couple of years now, but they're able to pull in about 7.45 billion. So again, forecast that out, call it 28 to 30 billion, somewhere in there. Doing well, but again, kind of a distant third to Microsoft and AWS. And moving on to the big one, AWS. AWS, 21.35 billion, now representing about 17% of Amazon's overall revenue. So continuing to grow. And the revenue grew at 20% in the last quarter as well. So that's certainly significant. And we are starting to see a little bit of these growths slow down, a little bit of the economy, a little bit of just big numbers are getting harder and harder to make bigger. But it's interesting to see them continue. Of course, as we discussed in KubeCon recently coverage, lots of eyes on cost optimization, especially around cloud computing costs. So it'll be interesting to see how this works for the next couple of quarters, and we're certainly going to keep an eye on that. But my final note on that is, again, remember, Microsoft seems to be closing the gap here. You're looking at a little over 80 billion for AWS and a little under 80 billion for Microsoft. So that's something we're certainly going to keep an eye on. Now, coming up after the break, we're going to be talking to Leonard Pahlke, who Leonard has a really fascinating background, CNCF Ambassador, and also was the release team lead for Kubernetes 1.2.6. And we're going to be talking about his experience behind the scenes getting Kubernetes 1.2.6 out the door.
Today's episode of the Cloudcast is sponsored by Datadog, a real-time monitoring platform that unifies metrics, traces, and logs into one tightly integrated platform. Datadog APM empowers developer teams to identify anomalies, resolve issues, and improve application performance. Begin collecting stack traces, visualizing them as flame graphs, organizing them into profile types such as CPU, I/O, and more. Teams can search for specific profiles, correlate them with distributed traces, and identify slow or underperforming code for analysis and optimization. Plus, with Datadog APM Live Search, you can perform searches across the full stream of ingested traces generated by your application over the last 15 minutes. Try Datadog APM free with a 14-day trial, and Datadog will send you a free t-shirt. Visit datadog.com/APM-Cloudcast to get started. That's datadog.com/APM-Cloudcast. And we're back. And Aaron, you and I have been covering open source for a long time. We've been very lucky to do things like, attend KubeCon and DockerCon and all sorts of events. And, to a certain extent, our day jobs have interacted with various open source projects, whether it's been, Linux or Kubernetes or all sorts of different things. And I think sometimes we sort of take for granted all the work that goes on behind the scenes. We hear a lot about, the developers that are contributing to the project. But, if I had to ask you, how does the sausage get made? How does it actually get out the door? Would you have any idea how that actually works? Or are you in the same boat as me? Sometimes it's cool when the bits are available.
Well, first of all, no, I have no idea. But I will say this, having worked with, especially kind of the Apache Software Foundation back in the day, it is amazing behind the scenes how complex things can get. And that's why we brought our guest on today to kind of talk about CNCF and release process and something as major as probably one of the biggest ones in the world, Kubernetes.
Yeah, so absolutely. So really excited to have Leonard Pahlke, who is not only a CNCF ambassador, but also probably more importantly, the Kubernetes 1.26 release team lead. So Leonard, welcome to the show. Great to have you on.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Where are you joining us from today?
I'm based in Hamburg, in Germany.
Excellent. Well, so you've now sort of been through this journey of having led the 1.26 release. Before we dive into all that, give us a little bit of your background, both in terms of, kind of your day job, but, maybe, for the context of this show, like how you got involved with the CNCF as an ambassador, but more importantly, like how you got involved with, the role of being the release lead for Kubernetes.
Sure. So my journey started in university. So actually, I'm still in university. I'm planning to wrap up things in my master program this year. I started digging into the cloud side in the third semester, I would say. I had a module where we had sort of the applied side of distributed systems. So we had the pleasure of working with Docker and some awesome cloud native tools. And this just showed me the entire landscape and how vast it can be. And this just poked into my curiosity a lot. And I was very lucky to find a job as AWS cloud consultant next to university. So I worked on AWS systems for almost 2 years during my bachelor's degree. And during that time, I had the opportunity to look into all those cool projects from AWS, all the cool services, Lambda, and all the nice stuff. And this was awesome. And but also during that time, I obviously also looked into the other cloud environments. And as premier consulting partner, you're kind of sticking to your ship. You're sticking to your cloud services. So I didn't have the option to also look into Google Cloud or into the cloud native ecosystem that much. But this was very interesting to me, just looking into the entire landscape. So after my bachelor's degree, I switched departments, or its company, now to Liquid Reply, which is a cloud native consultancy. And we have a broader view. We have very focused on cloud native and all the CNCF landscape projects, but also multi-cloud things and everything. And this is just to me, very cool that you have the opportunity to be vendor agnostic, looking into all those projects. And yeah, it's fascinating.
Leonard, let me ask you this, a quick side question to all of this. In your time in university, either with your bachelor's or your master's, how much, if at all, is open source software both taught or integrated into projects and classes today?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think in the bachelor's program, at least at my university, it's not that like big of a topic. So I think like open source should be like established also as a foundation when you start talking about software engineering. So this is like to me, a fundamental part. So all systems, like there are parts which are developed open source. So this, in my understanding, this should be like taught like next to all the other fundamentals. But this was not really the case. This changes in the master's program for me. We have now like a more proper focus. So it's maybe more considered like an advanced topic in software engineering at the moment. But I don't really understand that case. I think it can also be taught like early on, maybe in the first semesters, because it's very cool. And you can also like learn a lot. If you start contributing, it's like an accelerator sort of for your own like experiences and knowledge and everything.
Yeah. That's fascinating. So, and maybe a follow-up to that, because I'm just a little surprised by that. If you had to recommend a path for someone to get started in open source software, like, would you advise them to follow the same path you followed, or potentially a different path?
Yes. So I think the path, so my path, basically, this is definitely something which you can adopt, or which you can put yourself as reference, kind of. So I think it's very important to have like some fundamental understanding. You always need to communicate. You need to communicate a lot, and you also need to just ask questions and everything, and just be very, I don't know, like stick around for a longer time, and don't be like afraid that you, I don't know, like have too much to do. I don't know, if you're busy for 2 weeks, it doesn't matter. You can come back and it's fine. So I think like these fundamentals, if you sort of are reminding yourself, like this is the basics. And if you are so lucky and can join maybe some program like the release team or some other open source program, that's awesome. That's like a very awesome addition. But I think just showing up in meetings, like going into like the direction you're interested in, if it's data science, there are, I don't know, like projects, open source communities, meetups out there which you can join. And this is like, I think, like the way how to get started. And then you can always like look left or right, I mean, and see which programs you can join to accelerate that.
Yeah, no, it does give you a sort of a fascinating breadth of options, and the beauty of it is, you know, you don't have to make a complete commitment. It's not like if you pick, I don't know, biology, you can only do biology, or I mean, it's the beauty of sort of programming. I want to jump forward a little bit. In terms of being engaged with the Kubernetes project. It looks like you got started, a couple of releases ago, maybe 1.23. Can you kind of walk us through what your involvement has been with Kubernetes, and just, kind of the learning process that you've had in terms of being involved with the project, and then how you kind of ascended to being the team lead for this release?
Sure. So I started. So I knew about Kubernetes for quite some time. I mean, you come across a lot of technology. So even during your university, and if you're not working maybe with distributed systems or with the cloud, you have like some buzzwords, and they are floating around. So like Kubernetes was a topic early on, but I think I was probably like engaged with Kubernetes maybe like 3.5 years ago or something like this. So it's not too long ago. Some folks at my company showed me basically like a more technical side of things, like what is beneath EKS, and like what is like the orchestration side when you manage containers, and what happens if you have like a big system and you have not just like a couple of containers which you can maybe control with a Docker Compose or something like this, but need like a more sophisticated system. So I had a couple of folks at my company showing me Kubernetes, and also showing me that this is an open source project, so you can contribute to it. and I got introduced to the release team program, and I was lucky to be accepted, as you said, in 1.23. So it's not too long ago. And since then, I kind of sticked around. This is also very cool about open source, that you have all the opportunities that you can look into. Okay, like how is documentation made in this open source project? How is, I don't know, the enhancements, the processes, the release tooling, all those different areas, and you can find yourself sort of and see like what is a good fit for you, and you have the opportunity to dig into all those topics. And this just fascinated me and engaged me over all those time. And I got the pleasure to leading the release team in 1.26. So last winter.
I'm just trying to put this in perspective. I'm just trying to think about putting this in perspective. Like when I got started with Kubernetes again back in 2015 or something, right when it kind of got started, the people who were driving it were all, felt like these, just gods at Google. Like, oh, it's Brian Grant and it's Tim Hawken and it's Joe Beta. They've been at Google for 10 years. They've been working on Borg and all these sort of things. And it's amazing, how far it's evolved now. Like you were saying, like 3 years ago, you didn't necessarily even know what Kubernetes was. And now, you put your passion into it, you put your time into it, and now you're the lead of releasing the project. So it's encouraging. I mean, it's got to be encouraging for anybody who, is looking at, just kind of where they are in their career, especially earlier in their career, and being like, oh man, it's going to take me forever to get to some position in which I feel like I'm making a difference. You're making a difference pretty darn early, which is awesome to hear.
Yeah, I mean, this was not really like my goal early on. This, like, over time, you set your goals. I don't know, basically from release cycle to release cycle, maybe. But like when I was starting, and this is like still like my like the biggest, I don't know, like driver, like that open source can be like, it's very interesting how like a big project can be developed in such a chaotic way.
Yeah.
And how it's actually working at the end, and how all these processes and everybody, there's so many different individuals, everybody has their own style and it's working somehow. And this was like one of my main drivers, why I was so interested into seeing how it really works. And I think still I don't really understand it into detail, but I have probably a better overview. But like from cycle to cycle, this was just like my driver to see like I want to know how it works, and see maybe different teams. I was starting in CI Signal, where we just observed test grid and see if like there's any major bugs in Kubernetes in the release cycle, and just talking to the community to resolve those bugs. And later, I also did some other things in the release team, looking into the docs and comms and all those different roles, and like how everything comes together. This is just very interesting. And yeah.
Well, and as kind of a follow-up to that, I mean, I would imagine getting a release out for a large project like Kubernetes. I mean, there's a lot of coordination and a lot of work in dealing with a lot of people, right? I don't know if you have the phrase in Germany, but in the States we say it's a little bit like herding cats. And how did you handle all of that? Because as the release team lead, I would imagine coordination of projects and tasks and people could be a large portion of that, correct?
Yes, definitely. So this is, so you're kind of like the huge coordinator, communicator, and you're really shaping your communication skills, or working on the communication skills. So I think this is like, I guess, the main part of what you're actually doing as release lead. You're not really taking like decisions. I mean, there's like some small decisions, obviously you need to take, but at the end you're like mediating between contributors, and just gauging if like releases or if like some particular features are ready. If somebody from the community has problems with that, and like managing this entire like process of getting like the features out, blog posts ready, all those things. We have like dozens, no, not dozens, but a lot of like deadlines in the release cycle, which you need to care about, and you need to send comms. Everybody needs to be on the same page, and so it's a lot of communication work. Yeah.
Yeah. How much would you, if you had to, if you had to make like a pie chart of kind of what your responsibilities are and where your time gets spent for this? How much of it is, kind of being the project coordinator, right? Keeping everybody on schedule, making sure you've got a good plan for what happens, all those sort of things. And how much of it is, having to be like a mediator between, because, obviously with every release, there's people who, have contributed things. People want to see their feature included. Sometimes, that makes sense. Sometimes it's just not ready. It hasn't gone through enough tests, or maybe it's, the community is still not sure if it's, going to break something or be backwards compatible. Like how much of your time do you spend on project management, get the release out, make sure you've got good quality versus, having to be sort of mediator between people that just, have strong opinions and you're sort of the final decision maker on stuff.
Yeah. So I think this changes from like the point in the release quite a bit. So if you are approaching a deadline, enhancement freeze or code freeze, or one of like the important deadlines, you're doing a lot of, in general, you have a lot of more work in general, but you also do more mediation work that you coordinate between like different interest parties or SIGs and so on. And I remember, I think that during code freeze, I had like the Slack bot warned me and said I was, I don't know, sending 600 messages the last week or even more or something, I don't know, and said I should reduce it, or I don't know exactly. So it really depends, like also on the point in the release cycle.
Yeah. When the automated robots aren't sure if you're an automated robot, maybe you're sending too many.
Yeah. But it's also very different from release cycle to release cycle. So as far as I know, I think in this cycle, 1.27, we didn't had a single opt-in for the enhancement freeze. And during my cycle, I had like more than 10, which you need to individually look into and see if it's fine to accept those exception requests. So this is also varies from release to release, like how much work you need to put in. And yeah.
And what is, are you going to continue to be involved in 1.27 and in the future, or what is your role going forward?
So there's usually like a path sort of in the release team. So you start as a shadow, then you stick around, then be a lead, and then eventually maybe the release lead. And if you're the release lead, there's usually the habit that the release lead is an emeritus advisor in one of the releases to come. And for me, this will be actually the next one. So 1.28, I think it was announced yesterday. So I will return next cycle. And yeah.
He's coming back, people. He's coming back. That's awesome. That's awesome. So the other thing, we highlighted at the beginning was, you've not only been the lead of this project and getting it out the door, you're also a CNCF ambassador. Give us a sense, because I know there's a lot of folks that, that listen, that, see the work that you do, but maybe don't see kind of all the work that happens. Give us a sense of what that role is, why you signed up to do it, because I know it is a lot of work. But like what do you see as the role? What's the expectation for it? And what are some of the things that you enjoy as part of it?
Yeah, so I mean, this program just restarted, sort of. We had like ambassadors before, but we have now a 2.0 program, and we are sort of like in the middle, or the CNCF is in the middle of setting this up and announcing it also during KubeCon. So I'm like also very interested, like where the CNCF, like what is the vision of the CNCF in the future developing this program. So for now, basically, it's I'm continuing what I'm already doing. So contributing to all those the CNCF landscape and to the teams and Kubernetes and so on, and writing blog posts. So it's basically like a program for me to just I don't know, like further like build another foundation sort of for this work, which I'm already doing anyways. And I'm like more closely in contact also with the CNCF. I also organized in March an event in Hamburg, a Cloud Native meetup, which was awesome. And we plan to do the next one in end of May. So just basically for me, it's like a program to keep the contribution going. So I don't know if this will change a lot what I'm doing, but this is like, just a program for me to better, I guess, contribute.
Fantastic. And so one final topic before we close out. You're also, in addition to everything else going on, co-chair for the CNCF tag for environmental sustainability. Tell everyone a little bit, first of all, if they're not familiar with that, what does that mean? And then tell everyone a little bit about your goals and motivations there.
Sure. So, right. So the CNCF, so the structure is that, I don't know if folks are aware, but there's like a TUC, a technical oversight committee, who overlooks the projects and the landscape and everything. And there are technical advisory groups. So we have tech, network, tech, security. Maybe you joined. I was not in Seattle, but there was a Cloud Native Security Con, I think in February or so. So there are these tags, and we founded in last October the tag Environmental Sustainability. And that's right, I'm one of the three co-chairs, and our goal is to advocate about environmental sustainability or green software in the cloud native space. So this is a little bit of a like the topic is not as present right now, but it's like it's growing. So I think eventually we will have also some projects in the CNCF landscape focusing on energy, carbon emissions, and like also maybe natural resources at the end, and just putting this into the mix, putting like in our life cycle of developing software, maintaining software and everything, also an eye on those natural resources. At the moment, we are talking a lot about energy, but to me, I think this is like the kickoff. Energy is like the resource we can consume or which we can observe right now, but eventually we need to go also past this and also look into, I don't know, the materials and everything, the natural resources of the components which we are using, because obviously the software which we are using right now to record this podcast, for example, this consumes resources, and this should be included in the software development process. So we are just looking into how does this like trend of sustainability and software come into play in the CNCF landscape. And I think in particular, it's very interesting in the cloud, because the cloud is responsible for a lot of usage, obviously. So there's like the huge systems, and my like what I'm also thinking is very interesting is that when you look in Kubernetes, you have like a project which is adopted by like across the board, sort of like everywhere. And it's used for big systems, and you can contribute to it. So if we contribute to it and make it a little bit more sustainable, or build maybe some new APIs or whatever the case may be to like empower sustainability, we can make a big impact. And I think this is like very awesome about the CNCF, that you have like a very open community, and also technologies which are adopted everywhere. So yeah, that's awesome.
Good stuff. Good stuff, Leonard. We know you're busy. Obviously, we've highlighted that you are a busy man, especially as KubeCon is approaching. This show may actually go out just after KubeCon, but if folks want to reach out to you, not that you need any more stuff on your plate, but if people want to reach out and pick your brain about how to be involved with the Kubernetes project, how to be involved with the CNCF Ambassador 2.0 program, or any of the things you're working on, what's good ways to find you or get in touch with you?
So the best way would be to ping me over the Kubernetes Slack or the CNCF Slack. So if you join the CNCF or community Slack server, they are public. I think it should be quite easy to find me under my name. Otherwise, you can also add me over LinkedIn and maybe just point out this episode so I can sort of know, I don't know, maybe where you're coming from. So
right.
we can
why are you tracking? Why are you hunting me down? Why are you stalking me?
And yeah, I'm also on Twitter, but I'm not too active there. So maybe I will lose the message. So the other channels are preferred.
Very good. Very good. Well, good stuff. Well, lots of great stuff happening over in Germany. I mean, SoundCloud and, all the work that comes out of Prometheus and just a ton of stuff has happened over there. So awesome community that doesn't get talked about enough. But yeah, Leonard, thank you so much for the time today. This has been great to, not only, like, as we mentioned, learn how the sausage really gets made behind the scenes of big open source projects that I know a lot of you listeners rely on and depend on. So when you get a chance, if you see folks like Leonard or anybody else who's doing this behind the scenes work that don't get a lot of credit, buy them a cup of coffee, shake their hand, give them a hug, let them know how much you appreciate the work. I know that sometimes things are a little bit underappreciated or at least not recognized. So we wanted to bring some of that to you today. Folks, we want to thank Leonard for his time. We want to thank you all for listening. Thanks for telling a friend. Thanks for helping us grow the community and allowing us to continue to do the show. So if you're at KubeCon, we look forward to seeing you. I will be there. Aaron will not be there, but Leonard will be there. And we look forward to seeing a bunch of you and then hopefully, obviously, see you down the road with other shows. So thanks, and we will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.